As I promised you, this is my honest opinion about the Stranger Things final episode. I enjoyed the ending a lot, and I think it fit the core themes Stranger Things has always wanted to convey. I was actually baffled to see that much negativity online regarding this ending. Yes, some things were overlooked for the plot to move forward, but it doesn't deserve all the hate it's getting. So, in today's video, I also want to address all of the questions and complaints people have about the finale. As I said in my previous video, Stranger Things isn't a show about monsters and lab experiments. It's about people growing up while the world becomes scary. It's a show about friendship and self-acceptance. I believe this is where most of the hate is coming from. People were expecting something else from this show, and when those expectations weren't met, they labeled it as trash. Stranger Things has always had an 80s-style theme where good triumphs over evil, no one dies, and everyone ultimately lives happily ever after. Yet people are complaining that we didn't get any major deaths in the finale. I partly blame Hollywood for this because it has created a culture in which every movie is expected to be packed with action. Dialogue and character development arcs are often replaced by bomb explosions or excessive gore. I don't know if it's just me, but I really miss movies like 12 Angry Men or The Man from Earth, where all the action happens in the dialogue. The same thing happened with Game of Thrones. The best parts of that show, especially in the early seasons, were the dialogue. Littlefinger's "Chaos is a Ladder" or Varys's "Riddle of Power" are prime examples of this. The final season completely forgot about that. This is why I believe the Duffer Brothers really landed the ending. I was glad that the focus of the final episode wasn't the fight against Vecna and the Mind Flayer, but the epilogue, where we could say goodbye to the actors, goodbye to the story. An epilogue that made us realize that not only did Mike and the others grow up, but we grew alongside them. Now, I must agree that I do have some complaints about the final fight. The biggest issue for me was, where the hell are the Demogorgons? We are in their homeland, and yet not a single one shows up. No Demogorgons, no Demodogs, no Demobats, nothing. This felt way too convenient for the plot and came across as weak writing. I have the same complaint about the cliff scene, and how they somehow magically teleported to the top of the cliff to attack the Mind Flayer. Regarding the complaint that Demogorgons aren't affected by bullets, yet Nancy managed to hurt the Mind Flayer, I don't really think this is true. Nancy didn't actually cause any real damage to the Mind Flayer. The Mind Flayer chased her because they were intruders, and it wanted to eliminate the threat. We've seen this with Demogorgons in every season. Bullets don't kill them, but they still annoy them. It's like someone constantly poking you. You're not hurt, but you get annoyed and want it to stop. Of course, the Mind Flayer was going to react. Another complaint I don't think is valid is that Vecna was defeated too easily. I don't believe that's the case at all. Vecna was literally fighting on 3 fronts. When he faced Eleven alone, he had the upper hand, but he was also being attacked from the inside by Will, and weakened by the hive mind assaults. That was enough to overwhelm him. As for the people asking, how was Will alive if Henry died in the hive mind? I only have one question. Are you being serious? We've seen multiple instances of creatures dying within the hive mind. The hive mind shares consciousness and pain, but that doesn't mean that if one creature dies, all of them die. If that were the case, Will should have died at the end of Volume 1 after killing all those Demogorgons. Will was badly hurt during that fight, but he didn't die. And honestly, I don't think the Mind Flayer truly died either. We never got confirmation that the spider-like creature was actually the Mind Flayer's real body. Maybe it doesn't even have one. Maybe after those particles were released from the kids' bodies, they returned to the massive particles Henry described in Season 4. Taking all of this into consideration, saying that the fight was weak and that the season sucked is way too harsh. It's true they could have given us more insight into Henry's childhood, but they didn't, because there's an entire play that explores those events in detail. If you want the full backstory, you can watch that play. The Duffer Brothers only gave us a brief summary. The rock found in the briefcase came from the abyss. In 1943, the US government conducted a secret experiment to make a ship invisible, but instead they accidentally sent it into the abyss. This is where the rock came from. In 1950, they attempted to replicate the experiment, but a Russian spy infiltrated it, stole the rock, and hid it in the Nevada caves. This is how Henry found it, and why that man was so suspicious and kept asking Henry, "Who sent you?" This also brings the Russian plot full circle. The show literally explains that the reason behind their desperation to reach the abyss was the arms race between the USA and the USSR, with the ultimate goal of weaponizing the Demogorgons and destroying their enemy. I'm sure the play will eventually be released on Netflix, but for now we only have the behind-the-curtain version of it. As I said in my previous video, Jamie Campbell Bower's acting in that scene was phenomenal. If he doesn't get an Emmy for his performance, it would be the biggest robbery of the century. The way he managed to portray a version of Henry that was even scarier than Vecna is something I still can't comprehend. But the flashback scene inside the cave featured some of the most impressive acting I've seen in a long time. When Will saw the truth and told Henry that he was a victim and could still redeem himself, we could see hope in Henry's eyes. I genuinely thought he might change sides in that moment. You could really read the struggle on his face and hear it in his voice. It was so believable and made him a real villain, not just a pawn of the Mind Flayer. He could have resisted. Maybe he did at first. But over the years, with everything that happened to him, you can see through his arc how it might not have been entirely his fault. External forces like the Mind Flayer, Brenner, and even his family pushed him toward becoming the villain he ultimately became. I feel like part of him also knew that he had caused too much damage and destroyed too many lives for redemption to be possible. Some people are just too far gone, and he accepted that he was one of them. That's what makes this scene so emotional. You really see the traumatized little boy version of Henry, and how his words changed from "get out" to "leave me alone." Henry being dressed as a Boy Scout was also an especially thoughtful choice, symbolizing innocence, boyhood, and curiosity, all of which were lost in that cave. I also really like how they show everyone's thoughts in the scene where Joyce beheads him. It puts everything into perspective and forces us to reflect on all the evil Vecna committed, showing that Henry was beyond redemption, which is why giving him a redemption arc would have felt pointless. I really like how Henry fully embraces being the villain in this moment. My other main disappointment with this finale is the military plot, especially how none of the major characters face any consequences for their actions. This felt like a bit too much even for Stranger Things standards. Nancy and Hopper kill a bunch of soldiers and it's just brushed off. And not only that, but Hopper gets his job back, and even a promotion. This whole military storyline felt unnecessary. All the explanation we got was that they wanted to use 11 to create more superhumans, and once they believed she was dead, they simply packed their bags and left. This plotline could have been handled much better. Since we're on this subject, I want to say it again. 11 is alive, and I don't even think this is up for debate. As I said in my previous video, there's simply too much evidence supporting this. The most important one is the fact that we literally see 11 in the truck with Mike when they return from the Upside Down, and then 1 second later, she completely disappears. A soldier even tells Dr. K, "She was right here 1 second ago, down by the truck." There is no possible way 11 could have traveled that fast from the truck to the Upside Down gate without anyone seeing her. On top of that, the military base was filled with surveillance cameras. They would have spotted her immediately if she had run from the truck to the gate. Another major tell is her discussion with Mike in the Void. 11 cannot enter the Void without at least being blindfolded, yet here we see her standing completely still. No isolation tank, no static noise, no blindfold, nothing. This Void scene is proof that 11 escaped the military base and made it into the tunnels. From there, she could blindfold herself and enter the Void. And not only that, every single time we've seen 11 access the Void before, she had a nosebleed. In this scene, she isn't bleeding at all. All of this combined strongly suggests that the 11 we saw at the gate was an illusion created by Kaylee. That discussion with Mike was necessary to convince him that she was truly in the Upside Down because, as Mike himself said, in order to fool the military, she had to fool her friends as well. The scene with Mike and Hopper screaming was what ultimately sold the illusion and made Dr. K believe 11 had died. I also pointed out how we can see 11's hand flickering in the same way Kaylee's illusion flickered when they escaped the lab. Some people try to dismiss this by saying it only happened in Mike's head. To those people, I have a simple question. How did Mike know about the flickering? I think he and 11 had far more important things to talk about than, "Hey, remember how Kaylee's illusions flicker when she's far away?" That close-up is clear proof that the 11 we saw at the gate was only an illusion. The only weak point, if you can even call it that, in this theory is Coley being alive for such a long time. But here's the thing. My very first reaction when I saw Coley get shot was to immediately think it was an illusion. If Kaylee had truly been shot, All that slow motion buildup would have meant nothing, because the outcome would have been the same. She would have been dead. Another strong indicator that Kaylee faked her death is how the scene was shot. We see Hopper go to get bandages, and the camera follows him, leaving Kaylee and Eleven alone in the room. Wouldn't it have made more sense to focus on Kaylee's final moments? I believe that camera movement was intentional. After Hopper left, Kaylee admitted she had faked the gunshot, and she and Eleven planned how to escape the military once Eleven returned to the real world. The final piece of evidence that convinces me Eleven is alive happens in Volume 2, when the wall is pierced and everything gets sucked into the hole. Eleven would have needed to actively use her powers to resist being pulled in. Yet in this scene, we see her standing perfectly still while everything around her is dragged forward. That simply wouldn't be possible. This is yet another indication that the Eleven we saw was an illusion. The scene where Mike tells the others the story is his moment of realization that Eleven is alive. He knows it deep down, but he chooses not to follow her or try to reconnect. This also shows Mike's growth as a character. I think this beautifully portrays his love for Eleven. He loves her enough to let her go. Mike knows that if he or any of the others tries to contact her, the military would immediately suspect she's alive and start watching them again. And while we're on this topic, I genuinely don't understand how people are saying the stakes weren't high in this episode. We literally got 3 fake-out deaths. First Steve, and then the last 2 involving Eleven. When Hopper shot the isolation tank, I genuinely thought it was real. I was in shock until I realized it was all a trick by Vecna. If that scene didn't make you worry even a little, then you're probably lying. Overall, I really enjoyed how this story concluded. While I agree that there were some plot holes and moments of plot armor that felt excessive, this finale does not deserve all the hate it's getting. I think the Duffer Brothers did a wonderful job wrapping up the series, answering the main questions, and tying everything together. Honestly, I think some people are just haters who can't seem to enjoy anything without complaining. As Mike said, what's wrong with comfort and happiness? Why are we always chasing something bigger and more shocking instead of appreciating the present moment? The little things that truly make us happy? That's what Mike's speech at the end really represents. It's a message to the fans who grew up with the show. A reminder to cherish the moment and the people around us. A reminder that the ultimate goal isn't some great treasure or kingdom, but simple things like happiness and comfort. What could be more beautiful than that? The series both started and ended with a game of D&D, a game where our heroes are now older, wiser, and more experienced. The final moment, with Mike looking at Holly and her friends preparing to play their first game, captures that perfectly. It's the realization that they've grown up, that things will never be the same, and that they must cherish the memories they've made. Even if they were to gather again to play D&D, it wouldn't be the same. That time has passed. This is what Stranger Things was always about, not superpowers, not the Mind Flayer, not the military. It was about 4 boys playing a game of D&D,